For more insight on to conclusion of US-Iran technical talks in Doha, we are joined by geopolitical analyst Ali K. Elyader, live from Isfahan. Thank you for joining us, Ali. So Iran says the Doha talks made positive progress on implementing aspects of the Islamabad memorandum. So from Tehran's perspective, how successful do you think were these negotiations?
Any positive talks or developments under the current climate and the recent violations of the ceasefire, mainly through the American party and their rogue nation Israel partners that were violating point number 1, violating point number 5. So any good negotiations or talks brought forward, especially the recent ones in Doha, can't be taken for granted. They are obviously embraced by Iran. Iran was a country that anyhow was seeking legal diplomacy before it was met with illegal war of aggression. So therefore, I think the Memorandum of Association was a stepping stone to a further binding agreement after the 60-day period. So we all expected a period of volatility, especially from the warring parties, namely the Americans and the Israelis, who continue to sabotage ceasefire deals throughout their unprecedented history of sabotaging peaceful settlements, especially the Israelis. So any positive developments will be embraced and are a good sign moving forward.
And Pakistan's foreign ministry says both sides have agreed to continue talks after the funeral ceremonies of Iran's former supreme leader. So does this indicate, do you think, that both Tehran and Washington remain committed to diplomacy despite regional tensions?
I think the Iranians are certainly committed to diplomacy, but they are also committed to the national security of their country, to make sure that illegal wars of aggression are not launched from near its waterways or the Strait of Hormuz or the Persian Gulf or through GCC countries and their American bases. So Iran was pursuing, as I said, diplomacy. The Americans continued to violate it from day one when diplomacy was met with bombs prior to the 40-day period. So we have to see if the Americans are committed, because in terms of track record, the Iranians have a better track record in pursuing diplomacy. I think partners like Pakistan, who understand the economic, geopolitical realities of the region, have strong ties in the region, including strong ties with Iran, can help perhaps sustain diplomacy to allow for stability in the region. You mustn't forget players like Turkey, who also are wary of the illegal hegemonic warring ambitions of the Israelis. And the Israelis have recently made threats towards Turkey. So Turkey can also help, along with Oman, along with Qatar, to help diplomacy work. The Turks also saw that the Americans were trying to arm the Kurdish groups within Turkey, within Iraq, in the January protests of Iran through Kurdish groups. So Turkey is also aware of possible tensions. It's also a matter of national security for all players in the region. We mustn't also forget the global economy that is reaching a disastrous point. The global oil reserves, strategic oil reserves, are running out. They have been depleted. In order to rejuvenate those oil reserves, there must be stability, and this global choke point, which is the Strait of Hormuz, must be open to replenish oil reserves and perhaps not cause the global economy to hit a brick wall and a disastrous end. So therefore, yes, I think if the parties are smart, they do not take the lead from the likes of Benjamin Netanyahu, who, despite intelligence agencies saying to the contrary that Iran didn't pose an imminent threat, if they don't take the lead from Israel, this includes the United States, then yes, I think there might be hope moving forward.
again, Pakistan has reaffirmed its role as a mediator. And while Prime Minister Shahbaz Sharif is actually on a visit to Iran and Turkey. So how is Pakistan's role, do you think, viewed in Iran?
A very productive role. Iranians have cultural ties, ethnic ties with Pakistan. They are our neighbors which share a broad border with us. And as I mentioned Pakistan in your previous question, both Mr. Shahbaz Sharif are held in high regard in Iran. So is Mr. Asim Munir, also held in high regard. I think since Pakistan is a global nuclear power, they can perhaps have stronger rhetoric when it comes to violations of the ceasefire against the likes of Israel. I also mentioned Turkey. As you said, the Pakistani Prime Minister is visiting Turkey. So I think because they are both important regional players and they have both, especially Turkey, being threatened directly and indirectly from Israel recently, there has been harsh rhetoric from both sides. I think Turkey will perhaps also serve a mediating role along with Pakistan, along with Oman and Qatar, to achieve better mediation and better diplomacy moving forward.
Iran's ambassador to the UN has warned that Iran will respond to any hostilities following Israeli threats against its leadership. So could this escalation undermine the diplomatic momentum, do you think, created in Doha?
Yes, I think Iran will take any kind of escalation will derail diplomacy. Iran knows how to retaliate harshly and fiercely if met with aggression by Israel. Israel has seen successful Iranian retaliation, and I don't think it will be to Israel's detriment if they act so irrationally and illegally. But Iran is aware that Israel is as a state that is morally bankrupt. It terrorizes the region and acts irrationally. I said previously, it's like a baby that has lost its candy, that is throwing tantrums right now. Israel has lost the moral high ground. In fact, it probably never had a moral high ground. Israel has lost its support within the United States. The recent elections in New York, the congressional primaries, was a referendum on on the American society trying to detach from Zionist and Israeli involvement in their internal politics. Israel has reached havoc from the United States to the Middle East. And even this is from a state in New York where there are plenty of American Jews who also want to detach from Zionism. Zionism has, and the settler colonial state of Israel has also hijacked their religion, their identity. Therefore, if Israel wants more fingers pointed at it, more fingers of blame pointed at it, it will act irrationally. But I think Iran is prepared. Let's not forget the high-level Russian delegations arriving to these funeral proceedings of the late martyred Imam Khamenei. Let's not forget the high-level Chinese delegations. So if Israel does not want to be met with the wrath of the international community, the wrath of the Chinese, the Russians, and the Iranians, it will hold back.
Ali, as the preparations begin for the next round of talks, so what will Iran's main priority, do you think, be? Sanctions relief or security guarantees, implementation of the Islamabad memorandum, or do you think a broader regional stability?
Of course, Iran pursues broader regional stability. Iran also wants to act responsibly when it pertains to its own population, its own security. Of course, sanctions relief is important for Iran. Of course, the broader MOU is important for Iran and the framework of that MOU. But I think the ongoing, it's the Americans, it's the warring faction, it's the violating faction, along with our partner state, Israel, that needs to be acting more responsibly for diplomacy to have a chance. it's highly surprising that a country like the United States, recommend your viewers watch an interview with the late martyred Ali Larijani, God rest his soul, who described a meeting with Henry Kissinger, a diplomat who wasn't a saint. He had uh, um, evil treaties across the world signed, but he had at least some awareness. His reputation that preceded him was at least one of awareness. Henry Kissinger told Mr. Larijani that Iran is a country that needs to be treated with respect. It's an ancient civilization, a proud nation. But when you have the likes of Kushner and Witkoff, who have zero geopolitical or diplomatic competence, who are not astute in diplomacy, they have what? A reputation that precedes them of being real estate tycoons who invest in settlements in occupied territories, who have links with people in the Epstein files, who like Kushner wants to do insider trading or wants to have meetings with GCC countries to milk them for his private equity fund. So when you have the likes of Kushner and Steve Witkoff spearheading your negotiations and diplomacy, that's a recipe for disaster. I think the Americans should follow proper diplomacy, act more rationally in order to salvage any remnants of an international reputation that they might still have, and save the global economy from crashing, their own economy from crashing. Therefore, I think the onus is on the Americans. Iranians follow legal paths of diplomacy, but also act fiercely and retaliate harshly when met with aggression. That's why everybody has seen they won this war, this recent war strategically, and they know that it is a difficult path moving ahead in the next 30, 40 days until a lasting binding agreement is met. But as I said, the responsibility, I think, falls on the American side, and I hope the Pakistani mediation can help reach a lasting settlement, and finally we reach a binding agreement that allows for the global economy to breathe and regional stability to be sustained.
Thank you, Ali.